Hey there, and welcome to the podcast Tiling Connect, hosted by Mark Moskwa. This show is designed to connect people with the best information intended to strengthen the business of tiling. To keep up to date with all the episodes, don't forget to subscribe.
Tiling Connect is brought to you by Lux's Grates, the leaders in aluminium drainage, which are UV stable, rust-proof and customisable on site. Available at your local tile or plumbing shop. Hey everybody, Mark here from Tiling Connect. Welcome to today's episode, and really lucky and privileged to have another amazing guest with us today, someone who's been in the industry for greater than 30 years and has dedicated much of his life to the tiling space. We have Fred Gray here, and hey Fred, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and I hope I can answer the questions, all the questions, and provide some insight.
Awesome. Mate, I'm absolutely super confident that you will, particularly given your experience. Now, I was having a look before, and you'll probably explain this way more eloquently than I will, but you've got 20 years experience as a builder, building and concrete space.
Yep.
Then before that, you moved into LATICRETE and worked with, you've been with LATICRETE for some time. And in that sort of technical leadership consulting space, am I saying that correctly?
Okay, yeah. So currently all things technical, advising people on how to tile properly.
Yeah, excellent. Wow.
Yeah,
And you joined LATICRETE in 1992, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was thereabouts, 1992, thereabouts, yeah.
Wow. So that is a long time ago. So that's excellent. Mate, it's it's so amazing to see people like yourself in the industry, still in the industry and doing some great things. So, but mate, I know that, you mentioned that, you're obviously in a technical capacity, doing training, attending seminars, writing trainings, writing technical specifications, I have no doubt, and being very active and live in sort of environments outside of the building and with contractors and that sort of thing, and writing, just technical documents specifically. So I know that you've been very hands-on as well with the Australian Tile Council, and I know there's some other committees that you've been involved with, but I might not steal too much of your thunder and get you to give us a little bit more of a look in on those on the roles. So,
LATICRETE, all things technical, using how to install tile permanently, shockproof installations, all those sorts of things with good warranties and life of structure installations and the like. So all things tiles, waterproofing, sound control, underlayments and the like is my day-to-day, and that involves not just specifications but training people, demonstrations, how to use products, what to do, what to avoid, what to look out for, and the like. A part of, growing in that space is networking and being involved with industry organisations. So Australian Tile Council, as you mentioned, in the past, master builders, currently building consultant groups, anywhere where we can learn and network is where I go. I think that Australian standard committees is and being able to perform on those is the culmination of those years of experience and networking and understanding, what our industry is about and what to look out for and how to do it right.
Certainly a world of experience, Fred, and one of the key reasons I wanted to get you on today was because of that depth of experience. It's not something you see that often anymore in our game. I know there's a lot of shifting and moving and changing and people retiring, and I think there's a next generation of younger technical people coming through. And I wanted to really pick your brains today, because one of the reasons we caught up recently was we were speaking about the AS3958, which is the new, well, not the new, it's the upgraded or enhanced version, depending upon which colourful word that you want to put it, was released on the 1st of December in 2023.
Yep.
So I have no doubt that many hard days, months and years have gone into making some amazing changes to this document. Can you give us a bit of an overview of the procedural sort of the document that's been developed, or the changes that have been made, and around that sort of installation of ceramic and stone products?
Okay, all right. So a little bit of history, I suppose. The previous version. Well, there was two parts to the previous version, 1 and 2. As you said, one part was last updated in 2007. The other part, the last update was 1992 or something.
Wow.
So there was I think a crying need to modernise the document, bring them together, and be a little bit more relevant, or be more relevant with the current products that are being used out there, and to coincide, I guess, with the way building is done today as opposed to all those years ago. So the document is the standard goes through a process where a formal proposal is put to Australian standards. That was done by the Australian Tile Council, who put together the proposal. The proposal goes to standards. Standards send it out to the stakeholders that we nominate on the document, who, by the way, we solicited for support of the document and comment to the document. The document gets support and I guess representation from the stakeholders, who eventually are the committee members of the document. The scope is set out in what the document is supposed to be. So in the proposal, we outline what we expect from the document, what we expect to produce. We go through formal meetings with Australian standards, whether they be face-to-face or these days video conferencing, due to the past few years, the upheaval of the past few years. So in the case of this current version, there was a 3-year process in developing this document through video conferencing with all our stakeholders, who represent a very broad range of the industry that are related to, I guess, tiling, CSIRO, Australian Tile Council, of course. I think there's a whole group of them listed in the front cover there, TAFE. All these are the relevant stakeholders who sit there, and by consensus we sit there and we go through the document, and we compose or draft the document and make decisions about what should appear or what should be written in the document.
I imagine it's a rather large document, right? The existing version, the 2007 and 1992 version. Is it easy to say that the revision was started from front to back, and that's sort of how it was tackled in terms of looking at each part of the standards and making decisions on what needed to be changed, updated, upgraded, that sort of thing?
Look, I think the original scope said, hey, let's combine both documents. So a lot of thought was put into how is that going to be set out? How is that going to be represented in the document? That's one part of the thinking. The other part of it is what is the new and relevant information that should be put into the document? So
exactly.
We talk about new products. We talk about new methods. How do people work today? Safety concerns to a certain extent. Time frames, problems with the old document as well. So this is all discussed, and I guess it's actually in the end very, very simple, because fortunately we had another document where a lot of the work and the formatting is already set out and laid out for us, and then you would just simply start at A and section 1 and work your way through the sections and develop the sections bearing in mind those other things that I said about how we've got to combine two documents into one. In a lot of ways, that was handled by creating new appendices in the document. So the design component, which is the subject of the 1992, the last 1992 draft, was put into an appendix in the document to cover the design aspect of it. Because after all, this document is not just for tilers. This document is actually for designers and other people considering doing a tiling system, and those who are looking for the best way, to approach and do a project.
Where did in terms of the new parts of the document, the new ideas or the tiling practices that have been physically incorporated in modern tiling, but weren't represented in the past documents, where did those new ideas come from when you were thinking about how do we make sure that we actually get everything in there? Because that's a really important question, right? Like, how do we get the right information into that document? Okay,
all right. So I guess that from the Australian Tile Council's perspective, we have a technical committee.
Yes.
And as a technical committee, we met from time to time. And by the way, the technical committee is the one that did the proposal. From time to time, we would sit around and we would talk about the deficiency of the document. Ideally, in what would we like to include in the document, and we had our ideas and we articulated those ideas in the proposal. So that becomes a part of the scope. So when we have our first meeting, there's a scope, and other stakeholders then would contribute to that scope. So yes, a lot of it came from the Australian Tile Council. A lot of it came from other stakeholders involved in that. Could have been TAFE, it could have been the CSIRO, it could have been Australian industry groups and other people who develop the scope. Yes.
So there's a broad range of people involved, and people like yourself that were incredibly dedicated much of their life to the industry, that have a world of experience.
Well, in essence, yes, but I think the credit goes to somebody had to drive it.
Oh, of course, yes.
And I think ultimately the technical committee of the Australian Tile Council, was listening to what the industry was saying, and as a peak body representing tiling in Australia, did the right thing and drove the proposal forward.
Yeah.
But having said that, again, as we've said, there are many moving parts and many moving wheels in all of this that came together to produce the scope and ultimately the document.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
That, one of the major, considerations with the new document was the continual talk about the old document just being a guide to tiling, and it didn't have any teeth to it, and that why should I follow it? Because it's just a guide. I'm going to do what I've always done, and that document is okay, but it's just a guide. Today, to where it's actually a standard that has normative requirements, which says thou shalt do this, and that if the document is called up in any specification or people are working to the standard, there are requirements now that are mandatory. So it has I guess it has more authority, the document, and I think as much as some may say that we didn't need that, a lot are out there. A lot of people in the industry saying yes, we did need that.
I think that it's a great step forward, and it's very progressive to look at, moving away from it being just a guide to being more, as you say, normative parts in the AS 3958. I think there needs to be that direction. I think people look for that, particularly a lot of the younger tiling contractors coming through, learning the trade. Expect them to create amazing work, but give them an ambiguous platform to do it on, well, then we just get all types of different results. It's the same way that we have for the last 20 or 30 years. So drawing a line in the sand, I think, was needed. And I think that's a great thing that's been done. Okay.
So the document, there's a lot of flexibility in the document because it's not like the whole document is normative and that every word is gospel.
Sure.
They're the important things, coverage and movement joints and the like, the subject of a lot of discussion and problems that have mandatory components to it, which are, unequivocally say thou shalt do certain things, which is strong guidance.
Well, look, let's talk about some of the more specific stuff. I've got a few questions here and some questions that have come in from our listeners as well. I'd like to go through and see if we can unpack this a little bit more, because ultimately, I imagine that everyone that is involved in the industry has a very similar belief that, this sort of document is that gospel, that Bible that we would like to have in as many people's hands as possible, so that they've got that there to educate them through their tiling journey, however long that might be. So, starting off, what sort of improvements or changes do you think the new document holds for the throughout the installation process? What are some of the more prominent changes that have occurred?
Okay, all right. So the combination of the two parts was significant because that allowed us to, in now and in the future, to update both parts at the same time, because they do work hand in hand. The design considerations are very important. It's not just how to do something, but the design considerations are very important as well. So, so that was significant. The mandatory, of course, what we just discussed, the mandatory components to it was significant. I think that inclusion of natural stone and engineered products in the standard was a very big step. The introduction of 5 categories of tiling was an important step as well. I think that it's introducing the tiler, the designer, to greater design flexibility when it comes to designing systems. The addition, I think, probably finally, the addition of more appendices, underfloor heating, how to measure moisture in substrates. Some of the more relevant, more important appendices that were required to deal with the way the industry has changed. Underfloor heating, for instance, is something that's grown leaps and bounds, not just in Tasmania or in the Snowy Mountains, but in Sydney and even in Brisbane and warmer climates.
Yeah.
How do we measure moisture in concrete? This subject has has been on the thorn of the side of the tiler for many years. So they're important. They're all the important changes, I think, that have been made. I think that better clarity and detail.
Yeah.
Of not necessarily of new information, but of existing information.
Yeah, that's great.
I think the introduction of better details, coloured details, more relevant details, more clearer details. They're all some of the major changes, I think, in the document.
Yeah, look, there's a big scope there of there's some pretty big topics and scope of things that you've mentioned. There's a couple that I just want to deep dive into a little bit further, and one of them was you mentioned about natural stone and engineered stone. Any of the changes or upgrades that were made in that document obviously would have been preceding the ban that's just been brought about on engineered stone products. Is there some impact there on that with regards to what decisions have been made, and would that need to be revised again in the short term to meet the changes? Because that space changed so rapidly towards the end of last year.
Look, I think that the document provides some upfront warning about, for instance, respirable silica.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do much more than that. I guess outside the scope of what this document is about is about how to do things and with certain products. Yes. it obviously suggests that we do it with all due care and responsibility, and that it does provide a warning about it, but it's outside the scope of the document. Now, in terms of, should we have had engineered products in this document, I think that in terms of engineered products, there's more than just the types of products that seem to be the subject of industry bans. So it's and composite products and the like. So engineered products covers a very broad range of products. And so at this stage, I think it still needs to be there. As we've discussed before, I'm out of construction. Silica has been an issue in the construction industry in general for many, many decades, and that I'm not sure where it's all going to head, and I'm not sure whether it's within the scope of this, this podcast to discuss it. It's a whole different area.
Yeah,
I think that there's a long way, or there's still a bit to go before we find out how this space is going to settle down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how is it really going to affect what we do? I mean, are we really going to ban porcelain tile? Are we really going to ban bricks? Are we really going to ban concrete? Are we going to ban sandstone? Because all these products, of course, could be the subject of, complaint and safety issues. It's how do we handle all of this? I don't know where it's going to go. So I'm not sure.
You and I both, Fred. I was having this conversation with a client last week in New Zealand, and we were discussing this exact topic about the proposed bans on particular products, and we're all sort of scratching our heads going, so the future is looking bright. We could all be living in tents. That's maybe where we'll end up, but hopefully smarter heads will prevail and we'll have a balance that will meet the needs of safety. Can you help us explain, or can you explain for us a little bit more about, the critical steps that have been outlined in this document, sort of for successful tile installation? Have there been any changes in that space or additions?
Okay, all right. I've been a great believer in following, the analysis of project data, which was page 1, 2, or 3 of the 1992 part of the standard, where it talks about analysing project data, looking at the base structure, substrate geometry. It talks about the construction schedule, and then consolidating that information along with what materials I'm going to lay, what type of beddings materials do I need to lay it, to come up with a plan about how I'm going to do the job. And then translating that information into a drawing or a specification, and then once I have that, to execute it and comply to what you've thought about is the best way to do the job. Now, in my day-to-day, I use those principles when I talk to anybody looking for a specification or information on how to do the job. My first question, is it environmental? Is it internal? Is it external? There's a table of questions that just run through my mind and that I would run through to get sufficient information to devise that plan to do the work or specification to do that work. To everybody out there, it's now in that same chart is still in the standard, and I think it's an excellent place to start with in terms of how do I do my job to make sure I have success. It's laid out there for you straight away in that analysis of the project data.
Nice.
So is it internal, is it external? Is it concrete, is it framework, all the relevant parts to just run through it, write it down, look at it in front of you so that you can make a decision about what you're going to do.
And it's an important aspect, right? Particularly with a younger audience growing up in the industry, for them to be able to grab that document and go, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, or, A, B, C, and these are the considerations that they need to look at when they look at a project.
Yep, and that I know that the TAFEs, teach this approach.
Yep.
I know that many of the specifiers out there, LATICRETE, our competitors, all have the same approach.
Yeah.
That we need to be forearmed with what we're doing before we actually start the work is the key thing.
Yeah.
We can't just start the work and then all of a sudden find out all these either latent conditions or things that we should have known that we should have been dealing with in our initial plan. There's no point in doing that. And ultimately, for the experienced, as you grow into this industry and develop experience, that process becomes quicker and more automatic, right?
Yeah.
In determining what do I need to do and what do I need to look out for, which is called experience, right?
100%.
So, but as somebody starting out in the industry, the standard has a graph or a document, if you like, that outlines this process and the considerations that one should think about in each of these steps as you go through the document, which is nice. Would provide very good grounding in and education in how do I approach the project and how do I devise the best plan to do the work.
Absolutely. Fred, are there any specific safety measures included in the upgraded AS3958 that our community should know about?
Safety?
Or precautions or anything. I mean, I know that we touched on something earlier, but...
Not necessarily, because the scope of the document is simply how to do something. Yep. So it would refer you to other documents and other government bodies that cover this in greater detail and more specifically. So, for instance, if you were to go to work cover and get processes on how to cut a tile. Look, okay, so do we wet saw in preference to dry cutting? Yes. Do we wear dust masks and hearing protection and gloves and personal PPE? Yes, we do that. Okay. This is a part of, I think this is also a part of trade education, industry education.
Yep.
You can't go to a building site, without seeing all the signs, without doing toolbox talks, without going through safety audits, without going through site inductions that tell you how to do all of this, tell you what's expected, along with your trade. Specifically for tiling, I'm not sure that other than manual lifting the correct way and not dry cutting would be the two things that I would say to people, to watch out for. They're not articulated. They're not articulated in the document.
I haven't had the best opportunity at the start of this year to deep dive right through the document yet, and I thought I'd ask this question because I have yourself on today. I imagine
it was discussed. How far do we go? How far do we go with providing work health and safety information within this document? The answer we got back to the group, we operate within the parameters and guidelines set to us, given to us by Australian standards in producing the document. And what we can do and how we do it is strictly controlled. Did the committee discuss this? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And the answer we get back, of course, is that this is a document on how to do something. There are other documents that discuss on how on how to work safely.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell me, is there a wider inclusion now in the document around the installation of large format panel systems, tile panels?
Yes, there is.
Cool.
And that there is a section. So large format tile is differentiated in the document as opposed to large format panel. So there are descriptions and installation practices for both, of course.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah,
I know that was one of many things that was lacking in the last document due to, the evolution and change of the industry. And, you'd always have a lot of conversations, and I'm sure you dealt with this on probably a daily or weekly or monthly basis with LATICRETE, where you would have a lot of inquiries from contractors around what are the right procedures and standards, and what is the right size notch trowel to use, and what are the best adhesives, what sort of coverage should we be aiming for, and that sort of thing. So,
okay, well, specifically on that, the first standard for working with large panel, curiously enough, came out of the US, the ANSI document.
Yep.
And that I think that we've aligned with the thinking of the ANSI document in ours, that the methods of surface preparation, of physically preparing the panel for tiling, for adhesives, and the bedding of the panel are very similar to that. Notching both sides, the substrate and the panel, for instance. Minimum final bed tile adhesive thicknesses of 5 millimetres. Using certain trowels, placement methods, the special tools that are required, they're all discussed. In fact, actually, LATICRETE have pro-focus training seminars specifically dealing with how to lay large panels. So when I say large panel, 1.5 metres by 3 metre panels, either on walls or floors. So we conduct those seminars in line with the way the standards describe how this work should be done.
Yeah, nice. I think I actually attended one in Brisbane last year, and I think it was the foundation training session. It was actually really good. There was an excellent crowd there, and everyone was really engaged, and it was a really intense day to fit so much in, but it was very worthwhile attending. Highly encourage that. Anybody listening?
So, look, without wanting to be, sort of negative about this, a lot of tilers in the years gone by, I've noticed a lot of tilers are very adventurous, and a lot of them step outside their comfort zone and take on work that they haven't traditionally done. So, for instance, we used to see a lot of swimming pool tilers who, I'm going to say, bathroom tilers who've gone into swimming pool tiling.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, because if I can lay a bathroom tile, I can lay a swimming pool tile, right? So there was, there was a bit of a learning curve for a lot of these guys, and that if we can help along the way, because we don't, we would like to see these guys broaden their range of expertise, and we just have to say to them, it's just not as simple as moving from one of these areas of work into another. You need to have the training. There are plenty of us out there providing specialised training for this to happen, and that my advice to these guys is just don't jump from a bathroom into a swimming pool. If you're going to, make sure you're jumping with somebody who's showing you how to do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And panel work is no different, right? And of course, the pro-focus was the pro-focus course on these was to open people's eyes to actually what's involved, so that they could make a informed decision about whether they're going to actually go into this. Because, of course, as you know, there's a big cost in tooling up for the work as well. Right?
Oh, absolutely. I still vividly remember. I remember the name of the contractor, but I'll keep it. I'll keep it out of this conversation for the sake of everything. But certainly, I was chatting with a guy who was there, and he was telling me about the job that he literally had taken on somewhere, and it was 3.2 by 1.6 20 mil slabs going on a floor, I think, from memory. And I just, the look on my face was, and I think there was like 200 or 300 square metres of the stuff that they had to lay. And just imagining the weight of those panels going on that substructure just blew me away. And to your point, very experienced tiler, not sure how experienced he was in that space, and had taken that job on. And the customer was obviously a wealthy customer. Obviously had, a nice big home, and they wanted to make it more beautiful by the minute. So you're right. You need to seek the right advice and get the right training and support to ensure success when you start tackling those sorts of jobs if your main thing that you've been doing every day is bathrooms, en-suites and splashbacks. You know, the bigger the tile gets, the more complicated it is. The systems are different. The costs are different. The safety is different. Yep. And I think, the level of profitability might be larger, but by the time you get to the end of the job, that can very easily and quickly get swallowed up if you break some panels. Yeah, break a couple of panels, and all of a sudden you make a couple $100. It's a very complex scenario. So
yeah, again, without wanting to be negative, going to a swimming pool where there's 20 panels of that size and that thickness, all drumming and falling off, for the guy who's never done a job like that before in his life, was a bad move.
Yeah.
So when we do these seminars, one of my questions is why are you here? And some of them do say, well, I've just won a job and I don't know how to do the work.
Yeah.
Or some say, I've done some of this work and got it all wrong, and I need to understand, how to do it for the future. So, and as you said, it can be costly mistakes. Some of those panels are worth a couple of $grand, just for one panel. And the wrong cut, wrong hole, and you can write off some money pretty quickly.
Yeah, very quickly, yeah. It all adds up in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
A brief word from our sponsor. Are you looking for a water drainage solution that serves its purpose and adds a touch of elegance to your space? Lux's Grates are here to revolutionise your indoor and outdoor applications. Whether it's a shower, bathroom, balcony, pool, or any other area, Lux's Grates is the ideal choice. It's quick and easy installation that you can bang out in just over an hour. Their standard grates offer a classic and timeless look, while the next generation style adds a modern twist to your space. Lux's grates are made of high quality anodised aluminium, ensuring durability and longevity. Fred, getting back to some of my questions as well. Sorry, I went a little bit off topic there. Before I do though, interestingly enough, this is I've been in the industry now for 21 years, so I'm certainly know probably half the tenure of someone like yourself who's got a lot more experience. I see this document as a defining moment in the change of how our industry operates, purely because of the length of time that we've seen in between the documents. And, there's been some other things that have happened through the ATC during that time, before the launch of the 2023 version of the AS3958. When you're talking with contractors, and I'm sure that there's many out there that would be disenfranchised, and I know there's a lot of them out there that don't own a copy of the old document. What do you say to someone when you have a conversation with them about these changes and they go, oh, look, I don't need it. I've got 15 years experience. It's not really going to be any good to me. Yeah, what do you say to someone that has that sort of opinion to get them on board and buy in on the journey of the standards?
I think that first of all, what value do people see in the document is the important question, and that in the variety of people that I meet out there, many of the professional contractors and the like are interested in what the standard have to say, do have copies of the standards. They do make sure that people they're working with or their employees also have copies of the standards. So as much as you say a lot of them don't have them, a lot of them do. And a lot of them are quite interested in talking about the document and are passionate enough, I guess, to wait for the next edition and read it from cover to cover so that they can come and talk to somebody about it as well. So I run into those sorts, and I run into those sorts who don't own a copy of the document. Those who are happy enough, I guess, working for somebody and doing what they're told. So there's that group of people who are there just to do a job and don't necessarily see that. TAFE students are the ones that I guess, are going through the motions of learning the industry and becoming who are apprentice tilers, becoming tilers and the like, I think should have all have as a part of their course a copy of the standard. I don't know I don't know how this could happen. I'd be quite, perhaps maybe in the near future there could be student versions of the document so that these people get them at a better price, because they're just starting out. I guess I never saw the sense in not knowing your industry Bible or not having your industry Bible, because this is, after all, what you're making, what controls what you're making your living out of, right?
Yeah.
And that it ultimately, you can simply equate it, this is very simplistic. You could simply equate it, to, well, geez, it's the price of 4 slabs of beer, and or something else that might be relevant to you,
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily, something, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, but really, is it, is it too expensive? If I had my own way, it would be given out for free. I'm an advocate of not charging for any technical information, not charging for books, producing books and the like. I've articulated that in many of the forums I go.
Yeah.
Hey, let's give it away, just give it away. The industry can only benefit if we give this information away, So hopefully, that might come to pass, that we'll give these documents away. But in the meantime, I think if you're making a living tiling, I really don't see any reason why you shouldn't be buying a copy of it and having it,
And I think I was talking with, it may have been Chris before he went overseas, and this would have been late last year. We were back and forth while we were speaking on the phone, and he mentioned that I think there is a deal where if you buy a certain amount of copies on the SAI Global website, that you get a discount for buying, I think, 5 or 6 or maybe 10 versions or 10 copies of the same document. So
I think that there was. I'm not sure if it still exists. Yes, you buy in bulk, you can get better pricing. Yeah.
Yeah, but look, on your wavelength of thinking, that I think that if there's an opportunity to improve the industry, monumentally and quickly, and all that's required is giving away an educational document for free, even for a period of time, I think that can only benefit and help the tiling industry in many ways.
So we've got our building code, the National Construction Code.
Yeah.
I used to pay subscriptions to get that every new edition, et cetera, but these days it's free. You can download. So, I think that's, heading in the right direction. If we can download our construction code for free, perhaps in the end, downloading copies of our standard for free will eventually come. And that when you think about it, it's a document that's created by industry participants, well, who are technically there as volunteers doing the work. So it's not a paid position, from the perspective of Australian standards. And I don't want to. This is not about bagging or giving Australian standards a hard time at all, of course, because they do. I think that they do a great job. They have to produce standards, and but given that the cost base for doing this in terms of the participants doesn't really exist, I'm not sure why we can't give these documents away free. I'm not sure. I think that I've got that from LATICRETE over the decades that I've worked with LATICRETE. Every single document that we've had there is always available for free. Books, printed texts, all those things are all given away for free because it can only benefit us. It can only benefit the industry.
Fred, as a if a tile contractor or a professional tiler picks up, made aware through this podcast, through the community that the new document is there and it's available, what bit of advice would you give them to encourage them to buy a copy? Like, what is it about this document that they're going to pick it up and go, hey, this is amazing, and why didn't I do this 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
If you're going to design a tiling installation or build a tiling installation, I think it's incumbent on you to know what the minimum standards are required for that job, and that it's written out in the standard, the minimum requirements for you to do that work. I think any responsible person doing that sort of work should know what they are. So there's a requirement for you to, if you don't own a copy, at least know what's required of you to do that work.
Yeah.
So if you don't own a copy of the standard and nobody's telling you what's required of you to stay within the bounds of that document, then how do you know whether you're meeting community expectations or your customers' expectations?
Yeah.
How do you know that there's integrity in what you do and how you act?
Mm.
So I think that there's lots of compelling reasons why you should own a copy. I don't want to make anybody rich from selling the book.
No.
I get no commissions here, but I think that if look, many of the people I talk to come straight to us for technical information. They bypass. They bypass, I guess, or they think they're bypassing the fact that they need to have a standard by coming straight to us. But I think what people should understand also is that as much as we offer good technical information that meets the standards of good trade practice, we're not necessarily there to provide or enforce what the standards say.
Yes.
We act and provide information based on the standards, but we're not there to enforce somebody's requirement to work within the standard. A good example of that is waterproofing.
Yeah.
We do a lot of waterproofing training, and many, it may be that we're not articulating what we're doing correctly, but many people think they're coming to our courses to get a license to waterproof, or to become waterproofers, whereas, we're, as a manufacturer, we're offering product training, how to use our product within the bounds of the legislation and the like, not to actually train somebody to be a waterproofer. We're there to teach them how to be a better waterproofer, but not to be a waterproofer. So you need these documents. You need these documents to understand your boundaries and limitations.
I think from the years of experience that I have in the industry, I think the other thing that these documents do as well is provide you a platform for having a voice when you're negotiating with people on building sites. So if you're a contractor and the builder is telling you, Mr. Tyler, you need to do it this way, and from reading the document or through experience that that's not necessarily the right way to do it, you can use the document to have a very factual discussion about achieving the right outcome on the job. And without that document, you can't do that. Like, you don't. It's literally two people coming together and having a varying opinion about the same project. So I have always found that you can have a much more healthy discussion, and that's an extension to what you were saying. Is that there's that, and then you build better relationships with everyone.
That's right. Knowledge is power. Right? Yeah. So I guess if you need to protect yourself and protect what you do and your reputation, understanding what you write, understanding what are the limitations and how far can you go is very important.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and to make sure that you have integrity in what you're doing and how you act and behave.
Yeah. During the process of, how many years has the committee and the stakeholders been working on this change? Has it been 3, 4, 5, longer?
Okay, so I first became a member of BD44, which is the committee for the ceramic tiling in Australian Standard Speak. I was first a member, joined in 2005.
Wow.
So I've been a continuous member of this committee since that time. So the committee, these are evolving documents. They're live documents in the sense that, there might be times when they're just sitting there dormant, waiting for something to happen to them. But the committee is there's some committee members, many committee members who have been around for all those years, who we know each other and we meet in different environments and in different places at different times, and some of our discussions are about these very things that that we do or should do in standards. What should the next document contain? Going back to what we were talking about before, how do we know what to put into the next standard? We know that by our discussions over the years, about our own experiences on job sites and the like, and what we're seeing and what we need to address. So the tiling standard doesn't evolve as fast, for instance, as the waterproofing standards evolve. And the reason for that, and by the way, the Australian Tile Council is involved in waterproofing standards as well. But that don't evolve as fast because they're not a required standard for the building code, whereas waterproofing standards are, because the building code relies on or waterproofing standards are controlled by the building code, are legislated by them. So there's more priority in updating those documents than, say, the tiling standard. So it's up to us in the industry to keep on driving these changes to the tiling standards. There's I think that there's a new view within Australian standards that these documents need to be more regularly updated, and I think we should take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any, couple of final questions, mate, were there any surprises in the new standards that you thought wouldn't be included?
Any surprises? No, not really. I think that the disappointing thing about standards is that you're only given a certain time frame to develop a document, and you can only have certain X amount of meetings, and you can only do so much work. So I think that the disappointment with standards is that you're never really developing the document that you want.
Right.
And that there's always room to move, and there was always things that should have been in there, and that was never enough time to do. So if I hazard a guess here, I would say that most of the committee members would be proud of the work that was being done.
And they should be, yeah.
But at the same time would say, we wish we could have done a lot more and we had a lot more to do. So I think that that's a perpetual state with most standards. So with most of the committees, there's a lot of passionate people on these committees. Yeah, absolutely.
And without knowing intimately all of the committee members, I know a few of them. Big thank you to all of you who were involved and made and sacrificed your time and volunteered that to get this where it is today. It's massive, and I think it's huge. And I think without the kind heart of many people, we would never be where we are today with the updated version.
I'm sure that they'll be grateful to receive those thanks. I was very fortunate because it was part of my job description with LATICRETE to be, to network, to be involved in industry organisations, to participate, to make sure that the industry, within our blinkered view, I guess, progressed in the right directions, and that was that we were only improving the industry. So for me, I liked doing this, but guess what? It was a part of my job. So for me, it was it was great to be there, and it's good to do this sort of stuff. I think the other important thing about it is that for those committee members and those close to the working groups that surround these committees, it's an incredible learning curve. And I'm just saying for people out there that if you, just giving a plug now, if you have something to contribute, but also the motivation to contribute, there's always room for people somewhere in working groups.
Absolutely.
It's a good place to be.
It's awesome to throw that out there, Fred, particularly for, people that are incredibly passionate about the industry, not just from an application installation perspective, but want to have more input and influence over, these sorts of documents and changes in the future. We can't all do what we're doing forever. We have all an invisible timeline on our forehead. So don't be shy. Put your hand up. Get involved.
Well, yeah, I think that, and again, to plug the Australian Tile Council, look, I think that we've got a like-minded group of people there. For whatever reason, they all came together now, are together to improve our industry, to make sure that there's better outcomes for not only the suppliers and the installers, but the consumer. That we need to move forward with training, making sure that people understand with new standards and people understand new standards to improve our what we do, to promote tiling.
Yeah, nice.
So that's a big thing. That's a very big thing, and
huge. Fred, you've been great today. I've got a couple. I've just got two more questions to wrap it up. We may not have time for fast track today, only because you've been.
You can keep on going. I'm okay for time. So you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Good. Awesome. We sort of may have touched on this beforehand, but is there now a timeline for ongoing updates and revisions and that sort of thing for this document that have been put on as part of a strategy, or should we just strap ourselves in and hold on for the ride?
No, look, I think that I think we need to gauge, I guess, market reaction to it. I've not necessarily seen a lot of market reaction to it. It's still pretty new. We're only just in January, and
2 months old.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that nobody's really come to me and said, shaking their fist or smiling happily about it. I think, like you said, people are still need to get it and absorb it and figure out what it's about. The committee itself recognises that this document needs more regular updating, and I think that as a committee that's going to happen in due course, and carry on with some of the ideas and development plans that we had, that we still have for this document. So that is going to happen, and I probably wouldn't like to see any more than 3 years between documents. If we could achieve less than 3 to 4 years between documents, I think that would be a good thing. We'll see how that goes, though. So, well, after all, if you go to ceramic and stone tiling industry was the source of significant complaint.
Yeah,
and that I think a lot of that. I think there's been a lot of education. I think there's been a lot of soul searching. I think there's been a lot of changes that our industry has gone through, and I think that we're in a better place with this. I think that a higher quality of advice out there from the manufacturers. I think that contractors and designers are working more closely with industry to make sure that there's less problems.
Yeah.
And I think that's, for the greater part, has worked in many areas. And that's only going to continue if we can continue producing good documentation and provide good training for the contractors and alike. Yep. People, shopkeepers, outlets and the like. That's another area.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for your time today. We're certainly not quite finished. We're getting there. Okay. One of the areas we like to touch on towards the end of our episode is just some final fast track questions. It helps our audience and community get to know the guests a little bit better and how they tick and that sort of thing. So I think for me, I like to ask a bit of a mix here. So what is a common myth about your job or field of expertise?
That it's easy. People think I have an easy job. No, I was only kidding. I'm not sure that I have. If we're talking about work, tiling. I think a common myth that I run across all the time is that tiling is height restricted. There's nothing in any standard that I know of or the like that says that tiling can't go past 2.4 metres high, externally. So that's probably the obvious one. I have no problem going to any, the system's going to any height. I might have a problem with some of the people doing the work. So, tiling beyond 2.4 metres in height is a myth.
If you had to eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Okay, I would say barbecue chicken.
What's one lesson that your job has taught you in life that everyone should learn at some point?
That you can always keep on learning, and there's always something to learn. My life has been one continual exercise, I guess, in learning about what I do.
Who's been, throughout your career, who would you classify as one of your most important professional mentors?
Well, actually, in fact, I started in tiling in the 90s, and one of the first characters I think that I came across in those days who has influenced me significantly over this time is a guy called Henry Rothberg. Now, Henry is currently and has been one of the owners of LATICRETE, and now resides and who resides in the USA. But for a long time in the 90s, he lived in Australia. And when I went into tiling, I met Henry, who's actually taught me a lot about the industry, about tiling, about people in the industry and the like. And I think that he probably had one of the strongest influences on the way I thought and the way I thought about tiling and the way what I did about tiling acted in my job and how I acted in my job.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm going to say him. He's a very interesting character.
He is, isn't he? I had the pleasure of meeting him once in Melbourne. Yeah, he attended. Who were we working with? Attar at the time.
Okay, yeah.
We were there I was working with National Tiles, and we were there looking at some slip test rating machines and things. And Henry was there as well. I think it was actually arranged by the ATC in Melbourne at the time, so it was a bit of an excursion. And I think we may have had a meeting there, and had a bit of a chat to Henry. So very interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the things about him that I liked, if we have to go, talking about that, was the guy always had plenty to say about how things are.
Yes.
Or how things should be done. He was never personal about it. He was never personal about anything, but he always articulated how things should be done or how one should think about something. Some people may take that, some of the things in different ways. I always took it as, anything he said I always took as being very positive and very worldly on how to look at certain situations or problems and the like, which I thought was, suited my personality. So I found him a good educator, and a guy with lots of experience, and I needed to know what this guy knew.
Yeah.
Because after all, he lived through, I guess, the start of the tiling industry. His family his father in particular is credited with inventing tile adhesive per se.
Yeah, very long history with many generations involved in tiling and stone. Yeah.
So their family had very strong influence on the industry as we know it today. Yeah. So he was certainly one person, that I needed to get to know and understand, what he knew about the tiling industry for sure.
Fred, you've been amazing today. I really appreciate all of the time that you've given myself and the community and answering some questions around the AS3958. I have no doubt that there will be people in the community that will want to reach out and connect with you and talk specifically about the standards and or documents. We're going to put a whole bunch of stuff in the show notes as well about how contractors can access. Put the direct link in there so they can go straight to the website to purchase the new standards. That way we'll make it nice and easy and accessible for people if they have trouble finding it. How do people reach out to you directly and get in touch if they want to have a chat? It could just be a discussion with you about you or LATICRETE, or could be anything really. So is there an appropriate way for people to stay in touch?
Okay, all right. Well, technical services at laticrete.com will always get to me. So, the email for me is my primary source of communications. Happy to talk to anybody, anything tiling, anything standards, anything.
Well, Fred, that's great. We'll definitely get that information as well in the show notes so that people can get in touch. Thanks again for today. Thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for volunteering your time and being involved in making the tiling space a bigger, better and brighter place. And until next time, Fred, stay connected.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Tiling Connect. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast. To see more of Tiling Connect, jump on our socials and follow us via LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook. If you'd like to be part of the show, email us at tilingconnect@gmail.com. Until next time, stay connected.